Would you come face to face with someone who committed a crime against you? Well, something happened to Karen Lamb 20 years ago that shaped what she does today, and she's been telling me exactly what happened.
So where we lived as a family, we were a small family then, it was myself, my husband and our daughter, our car had to be parked just away from the street that we lived on.
Right.
So when after 6 o'clock we went to move the car to park it outside ready for the next day for work, and discovered all that was left of it was a number plate and the shell of our car. So it'd been burnt out.
What on earth did you think?
Well, it was my husband that discovered it and came back and said, "There's your car," and handed me this number plate with some metal sort of moulded onto it. And I think when there's feels like a big disaster to us, something like that, there's not a lot you can do about it really, is there? But it's very puzzling that nobody had been in touch with us, and that was what was left of our car.
Was it a new car, or was it?
No, we've never been had new cars, but it was a car that got me to and from my job, which was actually over in Mansfield Woodhouse at the time, and we were living in Derby, so I was very reliant on the car.
Quite a drive.
Yeah.
What impact did that have on you? Because you were heavily pregnant at the time.
I was just found out I was pregnant when we get to another part of the story. That's when I was actually due to have our son, but at the time we just found out we were pregnant. I couldn't get to work. I love my job. I've loved all my jobs I've done, thankfully. And
what did you do at the time?
So I was a teacher, teaching dance and drama in a secondary school. So I couldn't get to work, and we were pretty stuck, really. So we had to think about how we could fix this situation. We weren't financially in a position to just go out and buy a new car.
So what did you do?
We had to borrow some money, so a loan, to buy a car so that I could get to and from work. And
mentally, that puts financial impact, can put pressure up here, and you're carrying a child. Yeah.
So it wasn't a nice place to be at that time, trying to juggle all those different things that we needed to do.
Let's move it one stage further then. What point did you think, do you know what, I'd like to solve this by talking rather than going through the court process?
We didn't necessarily have that option. So the police were in touch with us to tell us that they'd caught the people they believed who'd burnt the car out. There was more than one of them. One of them happened to be in the criminal justice system, I believe, at a point where they offered something called a reparation order. And part of the reparation order, I don't know if this still exists now, but this was what it was then, is a restorative conversation between the perpetrator and the victim. And would we be interested to engage in that process? I'd not heard of it before, but I thought, what a great idea.
Did you and your husband have a deep conversation about it? Because that's a big thing.
It is. I don't remember it being a big conversation. I think we just seemed to both be on the same page with this, even though we weren't really sure exactly what that would look like.
When you told family and friends, what did they say? Did they say you're bonkers?
No, I think we've both been quite fortunate, really, to grow up in households where it seems like resolution to any kind of issue can be done through talking. Yeah, but it's only talking now that I'm reflecting on that and thinking about what we've been modelled to us.
How did it go?
It was an incredible experience. It was life-changing.
What was the moment like when you were you face to face?
Yeah.
What was that? Yeah, that moment. I want that moment.
Walking into the room, heavily pregnant, there was a lot of adults there, and there was this young boy sort of in the furthest corner, I guess. They don't know how it's going to go. Maybe that's planned, that they are not sat directly next to you. And seeing his face, noticing, we couldn't not notice that I was pregnant, was really powerful. It was seeing that human being behind the criminal activity, I guess. It gives you a human element to that.
Was there a moment of silence when your eyes met?
Yeah, thinking back, yes, it was. Yeah. It was really important that kind of, you connected through that face-to-face contact. It wouldn't be the same if it was done a different way, in my opinion.
Was it an awkward conversation when you got talking?
No. So each person is given the opportunity to speak about their part, whether you've experienced that or whether you did the criminal act, and you respect one another when speaking. There are professionals there. I don't remember who everybody was around the table.
Yeah.
There was certainly, then it was youth offending worker for the boy. Now they're called Youth Justice Service, but they were there for the young person.
And how was the young person when they were speaking? Were
Quite
they
timid.
remorseful?
Yeah. I think that, well, I know that really helped. The fact that they showed some remorse for what they'd done. That was key, I guess, for us.
Karen Lamb, you'll hear more from Karen a little bit later on. 14 minutes past. 20 years ago, a Derby woman, her car was completely destroyed in an arson attack. At the time, Karen Lamb was preparing for the arrival of her baby, and the attack left her without a way of getting to work. After the suspects were caught, Karen and her husband were offered the chance to have restorative conversation with one of the perpetrators. And that's what they did. She's been telling me what happened.
Walking into the room, heavily pregnant, there was a lot of adults there, and there was this young boy sort of in the furthest corner, I guess. They don't know how it's going to go. Maybe that's planned, that they are not sat directly next to you. And seeing his face, noticing, we couldn't not notice that I was pregnant, was really powerful. It was seeing that human being behind the criminal activity, I guess. It gives you a human element to that.
Was there a moment of silence when your eyes met?
Yeah, thinking back, yes, it was. Yeah. It was really important that kind of, you connected through that face-to-face contact. It wouldn't be the same if it was done a different way, in my opinion.
Was it an awkward conversation when you got talking?
No. So each person is given the opportunity to speak about their part, whether you've experienced that or whether you did the criminal act, and you respect one another when speaking. There are professionals there. I don't remember who everybody was around the table.
Yeah.
There was certainly, then it was youth offending worker for the boy. Now they're called Youth Justice Service, but they were there for the young person.
And how was the young person when they were speaking? Were
Quite
they
timid.
remorseful?
Yeah. I think that, well, I know that really helped. The fact that they showed some remorse for what they'd done. That was key, I guess, for us.
Did they say why they did it?
Boredom. Yeah, and being out with friends. Not really thinking about
Showing
the
off.
impact on others, possibly. Yeah.
So how has that decision 20 years ago impacted you, what you do today? You were a teacher, you worked in Mansfield Woodhouse, you had no car because it had been set fire to.
Yeah.
So good old Karen says, right, I'm going to have a change of lifestyle. We're having a bit of a change.
I continued to work in my teaching job until our son was born, and then he was a year old, and I'd always wanted to foster. I can only work out now why. My nan took in people to live in the household. My dad and mum have a desire to help others, orphans in another country, and I guess picked up this sense of wanting to help others, and my husband was more reluctant to it. But after this experience, we both decided that we wanted to open our home up to young people, particularly from Derby. And we've predominantly fostered teenage boys.
How many?
I don't know exactly how many teenage boys, but altogether we've had 39 children live in our
Have you really?
household, or been there for respite. So
Roller coaster?
yes, absolutely.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, but it's worthwhile. Every minute of it has been worthwhile.
You work with young offenders as well, don't you?
I did, yeah. So after this experience, actually the professionals said to my husband, more so because he did quite a bit of the speaking in that reparation and that restorative conversation, that they felt we would be really good to work as part of their volunteer team with people who defended and were in that part of the system. Not with that young person directly, but others. So I actually mentored a young person, who'd been through the criminal justice service themselves.
The restorative approach, does it work, do you think?
In my opinion, yes.
Well, it did in your case, didn't it?
Yeah, and we use it in school when there's conflict between students, when there's issues between student and staff, when there's issues with staff and staff. I can speak that I've done all of those things, and for me, every time it shifts something and changes something. When you meet at the same level to have a conversation and respect one another's point of view, where you were at the time.
Your words are dead powerful, because I always think two people have got an issue. At the end of the day, somebody somewhere will sit down in around a table like you did, and that's the way you sort things out.
If you continue to keep a distance from one another, whatever that situation is, it's very easy to lose the human element. And it's really important to humanise one another. And that's what you do.
Just going back to the youngster that was one of the people that set fire to your car. Have you ever stayed in touch?
We did briefly. So when it first happened, we made a choice as a family to maintain contact through the youth offending service. So we didn't know any of their personal details. They didn't know ours, and that's obviously important. But through them, we communicated. We got a really lovely card at Christmas time, wishing us a happy Christmas and asking us that they hoped all was well with our baby. That they'd obviously noted I was pregnant with.
Which is not difficult when you're heavily pregnant,
No.
is it? No.
But it can't have been easy for them to maybe start that process of connecting with us as human beings as well, because they were, they're on that journey of where they've been to where they're at. So I think it was for about 18 months, that communication, just the odd letter or whatever.
I just wonder what that person is doing now, and what that person has become.
Yeah, I do too.
It's interesting, isn't it?
I would love them to know the impact that they've had on our household.
Do you know, I love that chat with Karen Lamb. That was lovely, absolutely lovely. BBC Radio Derby, 13 minutes past 8. If you're trying to call us, by the way, we do have an issue with the phone.